Okay, we have a signal, folks. This is amazing. I have a green signal. I had to record my bookless classroom on my own, basically, which was without going live, basically. And not basically, that's actually what I had to do. So I recorded it and you will see it. I will have to upload it. I didn't have time because it took me, there were 3 attempts to get online and I kept losing my signal on the bookless classroom. And that is, all right, it is what it is, but I got it recorded and I'm gonna be able to pop it up there. So I'm very happy about that. Yeah, it worked out pretty well. So I'm here, but I didn't get a break because what I wanted to do is go straight here to the critical classroom. So I was here on time, but I didn't get a break in between at all. So it's not a big deal. I'm not going to take a long break, but I do want a little bit of a break. I do actually want a little bit of a break. I'm just so happy that I have a good signal here. So just give me a little bit of a break. I will be right back in just a minute. And so happy that I have a good signal. And I'm happy if you are here with me, joining me. Okay, I'm back. I put on a shawl. I was a little cold. I love this shawl. Somebody's like, oh, wool. It's not wool. And that's okay. Because I'm not a wolf in sheep's clothing. You are. I'm talking to communist. I'm talking to all kinds of people who are against me. Because I am for you. I don't like this. I don't like that look. Looks like an old granny. We're going to go with this. I wouldn't mind putting it around. There we go. That looks better. Okay, let's stop the nonsense with the YouTube attire. Let's just keep moving. Okay, so critical thinking classroom. Yeah, so while I was, I did 3 attempts and got off schedule, which I was so much on schedule for today. I'm so happy I have 0 dropped frames. How could I not even stay online about 15 minutes ago? I don't even know. Or actually 45 minutes ago. Let's go ahead and I'm going to switch screens here for a sec. And so clearly that is not where we're at. But this is what I'm going to use because I didn't know if I was going to even be able to get on class. So that is obviously not our... Those are not our slides, but these are. So these are our slides. So we are going to finish up talking about learned helplessness. And then we're going to go into, oh, we did finish talking about that, didn't we? And then we stopped with the video, didn't we? And you know what? Because it was such a good video, I should have showed that to you in my break. Sorry, I didn't show that to you in my break. I should have, but I didn't. And we're watching it again. So 2 times. And we had a break too. So ha ha ha. All right.
In the 1960s, psychologist Harry Harlow continued where Kellogg had left off.
Harlow's work was really seminal in this entire field because he showed the crucial importance of the caregiving relationship between a mother and an infant, and how the physical stimulation, literally the physical contact with the caregiver, has profound impact on healthy development.
Harlow took newborn baby monkeys from their mothers. He gave them a choice between a cold wire monkey with milk or a soft, warm monkey without. They chose comfort above food every time. Socially, the effects of this experiment were devastating. Raised in isolation, without any love or encouragement, the young monkeys were scared and confused. Here was proof that early isolation damaged them for life. But these were monkeys. Would the same be true for a human child?
Okay, I wanted to pause that there. To show you and focus on right there. It's going to, go, that monkey is clearly going to the other monkey, right? It's going to the other monkey. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get this. There we go. There we go. Excellent. So we see the monkey coming down that was in the social group of monkeys, coming down and then trying to come over and comfort this monkey here, right? And we see this monkey, like, no, 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 stay away from me, right? Okay. Now, Harlow's work on this, I'm going to leave that up there. Harlow's work on this was really, really critical work that he did. And what he was looking at is, I'm actually going to take it down just because I want to put this up. What he was looking at, I'll leave that other one underneath it in case I want to go back to that picture, is he's looking at these different kinds of social conditions. Because what he's trying to find out is, and we had no idea, and this is extremely important. There are some things we have ideas about, and there are some things that we have no idea about. And then there are some people that we have ideas about, some things we have ideas about, and people try and teach you the opposite of what those natural ideas are. And so what we didn't know about is we didn't know really the extent to which we need to attach, I want to make sure you heard that, the extent to which we need to attach to other people, to our mothers, to our peers, who is most important. And if we don't have that, what is the outcome if we don't get that attachment? Now, we've talked about this in this class before, like, for example, we know the scent of our mothers right away. So when we're talking about caregiving, it is really important to note that the most important caregiver really is the biological mother. And the reason for that is demonstrated right from the very beginning, because we recognize the scent of our own mothers. And that biology, the smelling, the recognition of our mother helps us feel safe, right? It gives us far less concern, anxiety when we recognize the scent of our actual natural mother. And a lot of these, like the spiritual classroom and the philosophical classroom, I'm really talking about how they have purposefully mixed up DNA, and purposefully at the university level has purposefully taken, DNA and put it with, non-biological mothers on purpose so that they could study the outcomes. And they did this basically on poor people is what they did, expecting that poor people would never really understand or figure all of this out. Hold on. That was supposed to be, I was supposed to mute it, and I saw I didn't mute it before I started clearing my throat. Anyway, so we have found out, and they know the importance of this biological attachment, and that you just can't take people and treat them like, rats in a cage, chickens in a cage, whatever it is, and expect that you're going to get them to do what you want them to do. That should be clear by now, right? The only way that you're going to get people to do what you want them to do, basically, is if you give them a lobotomy, right? And I realize what you're doing right now is just short of that. It's just short of that. And you're finding out that that isn't going to work, that we are resilient. And that's what we're going into. So remember, I always bait you. We likely will not get into resilience today, right? But that's how I bait you a little bit, right? Okay. So isn't it interesting that I was unable to do the bookless classroom, that one seems to be the one that, that in the spiritual classroom. So it used to be the spiritual classroom that I used to get a lot more, interference with on my internet, and now it's the bookless classroom. What are we talking about in the bookless classroom? We're talking about declaring our independence from a communist state. Ah, what up? What up? Okay, let's not ruin your ears with my squeaky little voice. Okay, so Harlow, what was Harlow doing? Harlow was trying to demonstrate what really truly are the outcomes of attachment. And he did it with monkeys. He didn't do it with human beings, right? And so this is sort of, if we want to understand human nature, this isn't a bad way to do it. He didn't know the outcomes, and the outcomes were extremely devastating, which is so interesting, right? So what we learned from his study is that if we don't have, and very, very specifically, if we don't have peers, we will grow up dysfunctional. That's what he found out. Let's take a look at the different scenarios that he had there, okay? So I'm going to blow it up so I can see it too, all right? All right, so what he did was, you can see there that, so what happens when we are socially deprived? So what happens when socially deprived? Does healthy functioning require social interaction? Do we have to be connected with other people to be healthy? So what they did was not what they did, what Harry Harlow did. And you could see there that video was from 1974. So these are studies that were done in the 1970s. So, and Harlow was actually studying a lot of this idea of attachment and the need for attachment earlier than that in the 1950s. And so a lot of this, again, is the outcome of studying, our ideas and our theories that are outcomes of World War II. And more specifically, what we saw was this actually was a study of what was going on in Romania. So, politically speaking, there was a dictator in Romania, and I'm not going to get all of the names right. And even still, it doesn't matter. I'm not going to get the names right. So, there is a dictator in Romania, and this dictator is thinking that people are resources. Kind of like the former president is saying, have babies, have babies, have babies. Exactly the same thing. Exactly the same thing, right? Why? Because people are resources. And so what did they do in Romania? What they did was they said they made it illegal to have abortions. We're turning this country into Romania. And so that we had the resources of people, science, technology, engineering, mathematics, science, technology, engineering, mathematics, right? And made them have people, and we already know the outcome. Hey, pay attention, former president and anyone else who's on board with this. We already know what happened. Look at Romania. What they made was a bunch of children who had no real attachment. And these children, we already know what happened. Pay attention. They didn't turn into soldiers. They didn't turn into killers. What they turned into is just basically rocking people that could not relate, just like that monkey. Just like that monkey. We already know what happens when you do all of this manipulation of attachment. But what did we learn? We learned that there were certain conditions that allowed us to be resilient, that we wouldn't turn into this monkey. And that was the value of Harlow's studies. So, what was sort of the breaking point? When did we turn into that monkey, right? That could not relate to anybody and was basically, you can see, filled with internal fear of everything. When does that happen? Under what circumstances does that occur? Now, you don't like this. This was done in the 70s. We didn't know. I believe Harlow could not have known that the consequences were this devastating. And this is the shame in not knowing, right? It's the shame in not knowing because the consequences are so devastating. And they're trying to push all of this underneath the carpet. We don't need love. We don't need one another. We could be isolated. You're isolating us to train us to be what? Don't you pay any attention? What's going to happen? We're going to be that monkey. We're not going to be soldiers, you ass. Pay attention to the freaking studies that you're looking at to try and turn people into soldiers, you ass. Oh my gosh. Okay, so what were those conditions? If you don't mind, I'm going to blow them up. So monkeys were isolated for 3 months, 6 months, or 1 year. And then the last one there is 3 months of normal contact for 3 months after normal contact for 6 months. Okay, when were they isolated? So from birth for 3 months, from birth for 6 months, isolation. So knew nobody for the first 3 months of their life, no contact for the first 6 months of their life, no contact for 1 year, and then 6 months of normal contact, and then 3 months of isolation. All right. So isolation after what we would call a critical period. In critical thinking, we call it a critical period is what we're talking. So when is that critical period where we have to attach or we suffer the consequences? Okay. So, maybe this is what they're trying to do. Get them to attach to something, but have it be a confusing attachment. That's likely what is going on, right? They know that they'll be dysfunctional. They'll look like this monkey, right? If we have zero attachment. So what's the attachment that they're providing? And what did Harlow find out? And so this is so key here. So 3 months in isolation, those monkeys, and then they were put in, and there were other conditions. They were put in with the mother only. They were put in with peers only, right? They were put in with mothers and peers, their mother and peers, so normal conditions. So you can see that they were varying the different scenes we call them conditions, the different conditions that they have. They were giving a variety of conditions. So 3 months, all isolation. Those monkeys, when they returned to the normal environment, grew up normally. The ones at 6 months, very few. So 6 months of isolation, no contact. They were fed, right? They were fed, but so they were given food, but no human contact. Most of those monkeys were dysfunctional. A few of them were able to come back. None of them. They were so dysfunctional at a year, being isolated for a year, that all of those monkeys had to be put down. They were so, and so what were some of the dysfunctional behaviors? Well, rocking behaviors, biting behaviors, right? Biting behaviors. It's interesting. I find I just biting behaviors. Yeah, my son used to bite, and I find that so curious, and I think that that was a defense mechanism, because I think that there are all kinds of people who want to sexually abuse children, and I think that that was just a wonderful defense mechanism. But I had to correct him too. It was just a difficult thing. It was a very difficult thing, and I just think that, again, it's, you know, that there are a lot of people that do things that children feel uncomfortable with and about, and I do believe that we have to trust the children's instincts when they feel uncomfortable about certain things and behaviors. It's very hard for a child to describe it or explain it, right? If they feel uncomfortable, they don't know why, or even then if they knew why. You know, I don't like when grandma does that. Would they verb like grabs my cheeks, you know, or my uncle used to take his beard and rub it up against our faces. Oh my gosh. And it would burn. It felt like your face was bleeding, right? A little child. So interesting, isn't it? Right? So interesting. And how do you have the words, you know, because you're supposed to like your uncle, and you know that. And so children have a real difficult time expressing the things that make them feel uncomfortable, and then even understanding what that means. So this research was very, very valuable research that Harlow did for us. So 3 months, they were able to come back from it. 6 months, barely. 1 year, no, not at all. The ones that were socialized for 6 months and then isolated for 3 months, no problem. Absolutely no problem with them. So there's a critical period that occurs at about 6 months of age, you know, or somewhere between 3 months and 6 months of age, where a critical period where they need to have touch. Now, the first part of that video there, the first part of it showed another study that Harlow did where we saw that I think I'm going to be able to back that up. Interacting here, right, with the wire mother or the cloth mother. And this was also a very, very valuable outcome. So part of the isolation was different types of isolation. Some of them, they had a wire mother. Some of them, they had a cloth mother, okay? In this particular experiment, they had the wire mother at first that had the food. And then they were brought, then the cloth mother, so they got accustomed to getting the food with the wire mother. Then they put in the strange cloth mother. And that monkey spent 22 hours a day on the cloth mother compared to the mother that gives food. So what Harlow was demonstrating was that monkeys need to have more than just food. They don't attach, we said that they attached to their mother, that they could smell their mother. And that was part of the attachment game. Yes, to smell their mother. It wasn't just the food they needed. That was what Harlow demonstrated in this part of the experiment. So you could see that he is using lots of different events, lots of different conditions is what we call them, to help study which monkeys were able to be resilient. What is resilience? Bouncing back. Which monkeys were able to bounce back from these conditions? They were the monkeys that only had a mother were not able to bounce back, or monkeys that were raised with only a mother were dysfunctional. So interesting, isn't it? Rocking, biting behaviors, inappropriate sexual behaviors, incestual behaviors, inappropriate sexual behaviors, as in constant stimulation, sexual stimulation. So all kinds of inappropriate sexual behaviors that we saw in these dysfunctional monkeys when they were in isolation for 6 months. The 3-month ones, if they only went back to a mother, no, dysfunctional as well. They needed their peers. Why do you suppose they needed their peers? What was it that made them need their peers? And we've got that, right? So those monkeys, they look like they're doing pretty good there, right? They look like they're doing pretty good. They have a peer group, and that's what they needed, more than a mother. And thank God, right, that we need more than a mother, or I'm sorry, not that we need more than a mother, that we can, without a mother, still grow up to be functioning normally, because there are lots of people without mothers, right? Can we grow up to function normally without our mother? And if what I'm proposing is true, that they have been, switching up our DNA, I'm sure that they have been, right? So if what I'm proposing is true, then thank God that we don't have to grow up with our actual biological mother in order to be normal. That's a wonderful, wonderful thing. Okay, all right. So that is what we wanted to talk about Harlow and Harlow's studies. I think I'm good with that. Let's see if I'm going to hang with that a little bit. I'm not. I'm going to turn that off. Okay. All right. So the key to the study here that Seligman was doing with Mayer, is that not all of and this happened in every study, in every way that they replicated it with all different kinds of animals, that not all of the animals learned helplessness. So about 1/3, 25% to 1/3, 33% learned helplessness. But what that means is, so 66 to 75% learned helplessness. What did I just say? Did I say the opposite? 66 to 75% learned helplessness. But what that means is 25 to 33% did not. So make sure that I said that clearly to you and you understand. So what they were doing was that then, and this was actually a student of Seligman's, so Christopher Peterson, and he was at the University of Michigan, and look at the beautiful sunny day that we have here too. We just love Michigan weather because it just keeps things interesting. It just does. We get to wear different clothes, seasonal clothes, keeps things interesting. Okay, so Seligman's student, Christopher Peterson, looked into, so Seligman laid the foundation for learned helplessness. Peterson said, what is it about these individuals that learn helplessness, or that did not learn helplessness? What is it about these 25 to 33% of individuals that did not learn helplessness? Let's find out what their qualities are. And that really is the beginning of positive psychology. Because what does positive psychology do? Even though Seligman introduced it in 1998, what does positive psychology actually do? It actually focuses on those qualities that Peterson identified that are qualities that basically get us to rise out of the ashes. The phoenix that rises out of the ashes. That's what these qualities do. Peterson wanted to identify the situations that brought about the 25 to 33% of the individuals who did not learn helplessness. And it amounts to resilience. But let's look at the foundation of exactly those qualities. We could say resilience, that was somebody else's studies. That was Werner's studies, all right? And they did those studies in Kauai, Hawaii is where they did those studies, all right? And in fact, I happen to think that because I have been such a proponent of this and such a believer in positive psychology that I'm pretty sure I've seen Martin Seligman. I have met Barbara Fredrickson, although I haven't seen her around recently. I haven't seen Seligman around recently either. And Peterson supposedly died. I'm a little skeptical about that. I think all of these researchers honestly had to remove themselves from my situation in order to study whether or not what they were saying is true. And can they study this? Can they study it legally? Can they study it? Well, no, I don't think so. Not this way. But universities have been doing it for years. And for me, in the what's the word I'm looking for? This isn't the right word, but in light of what they are trying to discover, right, and demonstrate, I'm okay with it because I know this works. I know it works. I know how to rise out of the ashes. I know it works. But it really works because of faith. You have to have faith. It really works because of faith. But you end up getting that kind of faith. All right, let me say this. I'll say this instead. It's destroyed through sexual abuse. It's destroyed. So our faith can rise out of the ashes. The ashes, how is it in the ashes? It was destroyed by sexual abuse. But it can rise out of the ashes. So I'm a demonstration of how to do that. Right? I'm a demonstration of that's what I've always believed. I've always believed that I am supposed to show you a practical way to get out of a mess. And not a mess that's a financial mess, a mess that's a spiritual mess, right? All of you are hot messes, and I'm here just to make you hot. How about that? How about that for a deal, right? So many of you are hot messes. I'm here just to make you hot. How about that? Faux show. That is my job. Okay, all right. So let's take a look at this. What were the qualities that Peterson said are the qualities of the 25 to 33% of people that did not learn helplessness? Now remember, when we're talking about learning helplessness, we really are talking about something like what those monkeys were experiencing, right? Giving up. That's exactly what they were experiencing to the furthest degree that we could describe it, right? But let's stop for a minute and generalize that learned helplessness to, now I like this and I want it to show a little bit. Generalize that learned helplessness to people in our own minds, theoretically, right? Theoretically. When do people learn helplessness? When would people learn helplessness? Well, they would learn it after just like the dogs. When did the dogs learn helplessness? Attempt after attempt after attempt to change my situation, and I can't. So do you see that there are a lot of powers that be that are trying to show you that you can't change your situation? COVID. Sorry, you've got to be in isolation. I'm sorry. Is your loved one now in the hospital because of COVID? Well, you can't touch that loved one. And you think that they don't know from 1970 when Harlow did that study what that was going to do to people? It was going to kill them. And they knew it. Our medical industry is being run by communists. It's that clear. Our medical industry is being run by communists. And that's part of the great experiment, right? Will they turn to God or will they turn to science and medicine to answer their prayers? And if we're a phoenix rising out of the ashes, we're going to have to turn to our faith in God and not to science, and we can't turn science and medicine into God. And we already all know that. They're just grasping at straws. All of us already know that intuitively because God wrote that all on our hearts, right? We mix spiritual classroom with the critical thinking classroom because we are not thinkers if we are not considering our creator. Okay? All right. So, what were those qualities? Now, I have there at the bottom, it says, how do you explain bad events? So we understand these qualities of the 25 to 30. See there, a pessimistic measure it. I'm sorry, if I want to measure your whether or not you're an optimist or a pessimist. That's basically it. We call it optimistic explanatory style because that's a really big way to say something, right? Or pessimistic explanatory style because that's a really big way to put something. However, it's just optimism and pessimism, right? Do you see the glass half full or do you see the glass half empty? Now I'm gonna like do the screen thing, but I'm pretty sure that it's gonna